Hey, I'm Jeff Baumgartner with Light Reading, and we're here in Atlanta at the SCTE TechExpo 2024 in Atlanta, and I'm pleased to be joined by Phil McKinney with CableLabs. Phil, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Yeah, so today at the show, there was actually quite a bit of news on the DOCSIS front.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's talk about get your opinion on a couple of things, your thoughts on it. One is the opening up of of access to the unified DOCSIS 4.0 chipsets from Broadcom, and I've been gathering some thoughts from people today. But what's your initial reaction on that? It feels like it removes some uncertainty from the market.
Well, I think the uncertainty was actually not factual. I think the development agreements were put in place in order to support the focus and effort that needed up front to get the silicon up to a certain point. But that was always the intent, to make it broadly available. I think now with the formal announcement, everybody can then, and the OEMs, the hardware manufacturers, can all align and begin to deploy their designs as part of the effort.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think Broadcom last year, when I talked to them, they said, yeah, we will open it up eventually, but they weren't putting a time frame on it.
Yeah, so that's what created the uncertainty.
Yeah. So now I think it'll open up access. Hopefully that will drive 4.0 forward. But before we get into what comes after 4.0, while I have you here, maybe can you give us an update on where things stand on certification and testing with DOCSIS 4.0? I know you guys just did an interop and boosted the upstream. Saw some 2 gigabits per second, but yeah, I just love to get caught up on how that's going.
So we just finished interop 8. So that's going incredibly well. Good diversity set of vendors with devices coming in for the interops. Right today, we have 4 devices in for certification. So that's been going along just fine. A lot of the early testing, both in the interop, has been focused on DOCSIS 4 modems attached to 3.1 CMTSs to get the enhanced speed that enables. That's been going incredibly well. A lot of excitement on that. And then 4.0 modems with 4.0 CMTSs is also going incredibly well.
Yeah. Okay, and then the other thing that happened here at the show today was a discussion or some collaboration on what comes after 4.0 with Comcast, Charter, and Broadcom talking about 5.0 and moving spectrum up to 3 gigahertz and talking about speeds in the downstream of like 25 gigabits per second. So they're already applying the 5.0 label to that. So maybe from your standpoint, what is the role of CableLabs in this discussion right now? And is there in fact going to be a 5.0?
Well, what I can tell you is let me give you a little bit of context and history here.
All right.
So 5 years ago, CableLabs, we did a demonstration to the CEOs and the CTOs of 100 gigabit DOCSIS 5 years ago. So that started the whole basis for what could we push spectrum on the coax. CableLabs is already certified, been working with device vendors here, both in the taps and the amps. We've certified up to 3 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz, and up to 7 gigahertz already. So that work's already been underway. What you heard in the announcement was Broadcom support for silicon to take advantage of that. There's different ways you can take advantage of that spectrum. And so we've actually, like I said, we've been working with the device vendors to get the devices ready for that higher spectrum. Because really, when you think about where the future of the HFC plant is, DOCSIS 4 lays a very great foundation that really then becomes a spectrum play. So it really is you're going to see full duplex going to 1.8, then you're going to see everything go to 3, then everything goes to 6, and eventually everything gets to 7. That becomes the roadmap.
So that's the roadmap, yeah. And as you get higher up in the spectrum on the HFC plant, granted you got shielded cables, so hopefully that you avoid interference issues with spectrum that mobile's using, but what other issues need to be resolved once you start getting up there with things like propagation and stuff like that?
Well, you don't have as much of a problem as you typically would have in higher spectrum, like in wireless, right? Because I always jokingly say I would like to go back to the old timers who picked the coax model because it's great for transport of spectrum.
Okay.
I mean, if you'd asked us 10 years ago, could we ever get to 3, much less 6, we'd all be questioning. But the compute power necessary to resolve, reflection issues and those types of things is already there. And so from our standpoint, it's not as big of a technical hurdle as you might think.
Okay.
And the fact is that we can boost the power because it's confined spectrum, so we don't have power restrictions like the FCC issues for a wireless. So therefore, we can deal with all of those issues, and we've proven that out in the testing that we've already done.
Okay. Yeah, we've been talking about 3 gigahertz in particular for a number of years.
Oh yeah,
and
three and 6 have been the 2 numbers that have been bounced around
for
a while. I think doing 3 first makes the most sense. Mm-hmm. One, it becomes a nice, good incremental step for the silicon suppliers.
Yeah.
And what we have found working with the taps and amp guys that are out there is that a lot of their current designs can do 3 now with very little change. 6, there's a little bit of change that's going to be needed to get to 6
for like the amplifiers, like how you're spacing them and stuff. Okay.
Well, we're trying to work it so that we can reduce what I refer to as the regrooming of the network. Right. Okay. This is Pat Esser, when I first came into the industry, educated me. We only regroom the network once every decade. Okay. Don't be careful of all those of injecting unnecessary changes.
So that's the parameter. Don't
basically we like to. Well, you just don't want to be in there just randomly tweaking the network all the time. So that's why we've built these in over time, and it's also seeing what the consumer demand is. Right? What we're proving out is we don't lack for speed. We don't lack for our ability for tonnage, for capacity. It now becomes, it's not a technical issue, it's a market issue. When do you have to do it for competitive reasons? When do you have to do it for demand reasons?
Okay. Well, another idea we've been taking a look at, because the industry's taking a look at, is the idea of running 5G signals on the HFC network and NROC, and there's a supplier that is now kind of focusing a little bit on that. And my understanding is that you guys have been involved in some of those discussions. So what do you think about the potential for that, and what are any pros and cons at this point on that approach?
Well, I don't want to talk to specific projects that we haven't shared publicly yet, but what I can tell you is think of the coax really as just spectrum that you can utilize however you want to utilize it. What signals make sense? Now, the work in being able to take, let's say, wireless systems and putting them down the coax, it actually goes back and to a smart young man we had at CableLabs, who's actually is now over at Helium, Joey Patton. Joey was working on his master's at CU, and we supported that, and that was LTE over coax, was Joey's master's thesis. Okay. And that kind of kicked off us looking at, are there other protocols, whether it be more efficient, more effective, all kinds of parameters. And on a regular basis, we've always looked at what other things could we put over the coax, and looking at unique service models and capacity and device readiness and silicon readiness.
Yeah.
And so, we just think that the coax is an unbelievably capable medium that we just have not fully tapped yet as an industry.
Okay. And another area of focus for CableLabs has been fiber, because the cable operators are doing a lot of fiber to the premises, whether it's edge outs or greenfields or these government subsidization. You know what I'm talking about? Those programs.
The BEAD program.
Yeah, BEAD, for example. Yeah, BEAD's a lot easier for me to say. And then also maybe some brownfield here and there, maybe. So maybe talk to us a little bit about the projects going on fiber. Like what are you guys thinking about now, to help support that part of the business that they're working on?
Sure. The fiber work has been growing in importance for us, to the point where if you look at, for instance, our R&D spend, DOCSIS is not our biggest spend by any stretch. Fiber and our 5G work is by far our biggest spend to date. In the case of the fiber work, we still contribute heavily to ITU and IEEE and the standards activities, but a lot of our work is now focused on the coherent optics, and we see coherent as really being the next generation fiber. It uses the existing glass that's in the ground, but it's 100 to 1,000x higher ultimate capacity to anything you can get on any of the existing fiber standards. So it really creates, again, thinking of glass as being the equivalent of its coax, what could you really do if you took out all your constraints? How much could you really put down that glass for the ultimate capacity? So at the same time, we're taking some of the things we've learned in coax, like proactive network maintenance. We're now building OOM for the fiber world, and actually the fiber industry is keenly interested in being able to take those learnings and apply it to their fiber work, and that's great, but one of the challenges in the fiber space is interoperability, or the lack of interoperability. Cable guys are used to having good high levels of interoperability and collaboration with the vendors. Fiber industry doesn't quite have that same. So we've been working for years from the members, but more importantly now the fiber industry has come to us for help on the interoperability piece.
Right, because you know how to do it.
What's that?
Because you know how to do it.
Because we know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so we actually have in October, we've announced a joint interoperability with the fiber industry, where they're coming to CableLabs for us to run a full, true, open interop on the fiber space. And that helps the entire, not just us, but all users of fiber technologies.
Okay. Well, another topic that is very core to the show this year has to do with AI and machine learning, right? And and just to go all the way back, with the unified chip and the embedded AI and ML capabilities in the CPE and the AMP and the node. There's still, I think, a lot of hype around AI and stuff, but what is your expectation in terms of AI's role for the cable industry to help on the network side with detecting and fixing anomalies and issues like that?
Well, I think there's a lot of work going on in the AI world. In fact, there's some vendors here at the show showing off AI being applied to a combined view of PNM and the PMA, so the proactive network maintenance and the profile manager, so that you can detect an anomaly, and then using PNM and the PMA, you can actually, in real time, change the profile in the network to work around that impairment, so the consumer sees no issue, their network just stays up and running. Then you can dispatch somebody at a later time to do the actual fix. Where we're also seeing a high level of activity and interest in our work on AI is one is on applying it to training and support tools for the field technicians. So how do you take all that inherent knowledge of everybody in the members, everybody at CableLabs, the deep technical expertise, and how do you put it into the hands? Now, part of the challenge with that, everybody's trying that with all different kinds of efforts. Take all your technical documents, shove them into ChatGPT and see what happens. What we've seen is we've only seen about a 48% accuracy rate.
That's pretty low.
Very low. And that's what you see with anybody that's just shoving data. What we have uniquely done at CableLabs is we have developed a way to actually, what we used to refer to as machine readable, you need to create the data that's AI readable. So we've created a format to make the information, all of the data from CableLabs AI readable, and we're seeing 92, 93% accuracy on it. And so we're creating the RAG output from that data ingest, and then we make it available to all the members. So therefore, they don't have to recreate that effort, and the industry can invest into one set of infrastructure and capabilities. They go build all kinds of tools, whether it's customer care or whether it's field technicians or feed it into their own AI models in the NOC. That really becomes the enablement. Is how do we make what's really in our top experts' minds truly available, and therefore they get all the members get the benefit of that across the entire industry.
All right, well, sounds like a little more practical approach to AI and machine language.
I haven't quite figured out how to make AI make my coffee in the morning yet, but
maybe next year.
Yep.
We'll see you. All right. Well, Phil, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, take care.
Good job.
All right.